If something happened to you tomorrow, would your family inherit your memories or your mess? It's not a comfortable question, but for many older adults, it's a reality quietly hiding behind every overstuffed drawer, closet, and basement box. You see, every item you own carries a whisper from the past, a photo, a gift, a handwritten note. But over time, those whispers pile up, and what once told a story becomes noise. Here's a surprising truth. Researchers estimate the average American home contains over 300,000 items. That's not a typo. And for those over 60, that number often includes decades of layered memories, from wedding invitations and faded concert tickets to long-forgotten knickknacks with mysterious origins. It's not junk, it's history. But when does preserving the past begin to overwhelm the present? Think about this. Have you ever opened a drawer, found something unexpected, maybe a tiny trinket or old photo, and instantly felt a rush of emotion? One smell, one scribbled name, and suddenly you're transported. Those are the moments that matter. So let's talk about this, really talk. What's one thing you found in your home that surprised you, made you smile, or stopped you in your tracks? Share it in the comments. Because those little discoveries, they're the building blocks of your legacy, and we're here to help you honor them, not hide them. Inez Weatherby never missed a sunrise. At 74, she still trimmed her rose garden every Tuesday, just like she had for the last 30 years in her quiet St. Louis neighborhood. The neighbors all knew her as the elegant lady with the silver bun and the perfectly folded linen napkins. The kind of woman who hosted tea with real china and remembered your birthday, even if you didn't. But what they didn't see was what lived behind her cheerful curtains and polished front door. Inside, Inez's home had begun to feel more like a museum of moments than a place to live. There were stacks of vintage sheet music from her years as a jazz pianist, some torn at the corners, some marked with notes scribbled in haste during midnight sessions. Closets bulged with half-used scarves and shoes from the 70s. Her dining room table, once the center of candlelit dinners, was now covered in layered piles of greeting cards, programs from church recitals, and newspaper clippings. Not because she was careless, but because every single item felt sacred. You see, Inez wasn't untidy. She was a memory keeper. Every object in her home had a heartbeat. A chipped teacup? That came from the first set she bought. When she got married in 1971, an old metronome with a broken spring? It used to sit on top of her grand piano while she practiced Gershwin. Even a faded stuffed bunny missing an ear that belonged to her son, now a father himself, living 3 states away. To Inez, these weren't just things. They were time travelers, the last physical threads tying her to moments she wasn't ready to let go of. But as the years passed, something changed. The home she once danced through now required careful steps. Walking from the kitchen to the hallway meant navigating piles. Finding a specific photo or letter felt like searching in a haystack of sentiment. She had tried to tidy up once or twice, but always stopped halfway, paralyzed by the guilt of letting go. And if we're honest, haven't we all been there at some point? Holding onto a sweater that smells like someone we lost. A letter that makes us cry every time we read it, but we still keep it in the drawer? Because it's not just about the item. It's about the moment we're afraid to forget. Now here's where I want to hear from you. Do you have something like that? Something you've held on to not because you need it, but because of what it represents? Maybe it's in your closet. Maybe in a dusty box in the garage. Maybe it's a recipe card written in a loved one's handwriting. Tell us in the comments. Because those stories, your stories, they matter. Inez's journey didn't begin with a grand plan to declutter. It began with the decision to make space for who she had become, without erasing who she once was. For many seniors, what looks like clutter to others is really a timeline of the life they've lived, stacked, folded, and tucked into every corner of their home. To call it mess would be missing the point entirely. It's not about laziness. It's about memory. And for people like Inez, each box in the hallway, each drawer stuffed with odds and ends, is more like a chapter in an unwritten autobiography. But here's the challenge. When every item is treated as sacred, none of them get the spotlight they deserve. Imagine walking into a library where every book is piled on the floor instead of lined up on a shelf. It's not that the stories aren't beautiful, it's that you can't find the one that matters most when you need it. That's exactly what happens when sentimental belongings start to overtake our living space. The memories get lost in the clutter, buried under years of hesitation and emotional weight. This was the realization that hit Inez one rainy afternoon. She was looking for an old cassette recording of her late husband's piano solo, a moment she hadn't heard in over a decade. But after 2 hours of sorting through random bins filled with extension cords, broken ornaments, and outdated coupons, she gave up. The tape was somewhere, but unreachable. That moment left her with a sobering thought. What's the point of keeping it all if I can't even enjoy what I love most? That's when Inez made a quiet but powerful decision. She didn't want to live in a home that felt like a storage unit for her past. She wanted her space and her story to breathe. But she also didn't want to go the route of some minimalist guru who told her to throw everything away. She needed a method that respected her memories while freeing her from their grip. That's when she stumbled upon a growing movement that's starting to resonate with older Americans: Swedish death cleaning. The name might sound grim, but the concept isn't about death, it's about clarity. The idea is to sort your belongings while you're still alive, so your loved ones don't have to guess what mattered and what didn't. But Inez didn't follow the guide to the letter. She gave it her own twist and called it legacy lightning. Here's how she described it to a neighbor. "I'm not throwing out my life. I'm curating it, like a gallery. Only the best pieces stay." She chose to keep items that sparked stories, not stress, that made people smile when they saw them, not feel overwhelmed. She began to ask a new question. If someone found this after I'm gone, would it tell them something important about who I really was? And here's a little preview. Inez didn't stop at just organizing her stuff. She turned her favorite keepsakes into an audio legacy, using just a shoebox and an old voice recorder. What she created from that process was more powerful than she could have imagined. We'll dive into that next. But first, I want to ask you, have you ever tried to let go of something, but couldn't because of the memory attached to it? Share your story in the comments. Let's help each other carry these memories with purpose, not pressure. It all started with the shoebox, the kind you'd usually toss in the recycling bin without a second thought. But for Inez, that simple cardboard box became the beginning of something powerful, a way to turn her personal history into a living legacy. After years of feeling overwhelmed by her things, she finally decided to try something different, not just organizing, but honoring the stories attached to each item. She didn't need a fancy system. What she needed was clarity, and a process that felt human, not clinical. So she came up with what she called the shoebox method, a simple, deeply personal way to sort through a lifetime of belongings with both heart and purpose. Here's how it works. Start with 3 boxes, label them clearly. Legacy, items that tell your story. These are the pieces that spark conversation, laughter, or tears. Think family recipes, your wedding photo, or the badge from your first job. Love, things that make someone else smile. Maybe it's your daughter's childhood artwork, a postcard from an old friend, or that watch you promised to pass down. Let go, items that no longer serve you. Not because they weren't once meaningful, but because they've done their job and it's time to release them. But here's the secret ingredient that sets the shoebox method apart. As Inez placed each item in a box, she recorded a short voice note on her phone. Nothing fancy, just a quick story from the heart. For a scarf, she'd say, "This is the one I wore the night I met your grandfather at the county fair. He said it matched my lipstick, and I laughed so hard I spilled lemonade on his shoes." And just like that, the scarf wasn't just a piece of fabric anymore. It was a moment frozen in time. She didn't script it or rehearse. The beauty was in the honesty, the realness. Her voice cracked sometimes. She giggled at her own memories. And over time, that little shoebox filled with simple items and audio clips became a treasure chest. The emotional ripple was unexpected. Her granddaughter, Lily, started listening to one recording each Sunday morning while making breakfast. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she cried, but every time, she felt closer to her grandmother. It wasn't just decluttering anymore. It was storytelling. legacy building, and it turned what could have been a lonely process into a joyful, connected one. You don't need tech skills to do this. A basic smartphone, a shoebox, and your voice are enough. And if recording isn't for you, consider writing notes or asking someone to help. The goal is the same: capture the why, not just the what. So here's something for you to think about. What's one item in your home that holds a story worth telling? Maybe it's a brooch, a faded recipe card, or even an old cassette tape. Tell us in the comments. Your story might just inspire someone else to remember what really matters. Clutter doesn't arrive all at once, and it doesn't have to leave all at once either. That's a truth Inez Weatherby learned the slow, gentle way. After decades of collecting, saving, and stacking, the idea of decluttering felt like trying to move a mountain with a spoon. But here's where everything shifted. She stopped thinking big. Instead of trying to tackle her whole basement or clear out every closet in one weekend, she turned to something surprisingly manageable: a corner, a drawer, a single surface. Just 15 minutes a day, right after her morning tea. No pressure, no guilt, no rushing. She called it her sip and sort ritual, and in those 15 quiet minutes, she began rewriting her relationship with her belongings. One day it was the drawer by the sink filled with twist ties and dried-out pens. Another day, the bookshelf in the hallway, where half the books hadn't been touched in years. She didn't aim to finish everything. She aimed to begin. That small mental shift, it made all the difference. Here's a powerful approach she used, one that's gained popularity among seniors who want to feel progress without the overwhelm. The microspace method. Pick a tiny zone, a drawer, a single shelf, even just the top of your dresser. Set a timer for 15 minutes. No distractions, just you, the space, and the stories. You'd be amazed what can happen in a quarter of an hour. And here's the fun twist. Inez brought in a little tech magic. With help from her granddaughter, she started taking before and after photos using her smartphone. Nothing fancy, just a snapshot before she started and another once she'd finished her 15-minute session. At first, it was just for herself, a quiet way to track progress. But over time, the photos became something more. She compiled them into a digital scrapbook, a visual memory lane that showed not just cleaner spaces, but reclaimed calm. There was the cleared-out tea cabinet where she rediscovered her grandmother's ceramic canisters. The hall closet she turned into a cozy reading nook. And the old drawer that once held mismatched batteries and buttons, now it cradled handwritten letters, carefully tied in ribbon and stored with intention. These little before and after victories weren't about aesthetics. They were about identity, about reclaiming control over the space she lived in, one drawer at a time. And maybe most important of all, it helped shift her mindset from getting rid of stuff to making space for living. That mental pivot became the real magic. If you're watching and thinking, where do I even begin? Start small. One drawer, one shelf, one box. Let it be imperfect. Let it be honest. Take a photo before. Take a deep breath after. And if you have a grandchild or a tech-savvy neighbor, ask them to help build your own little digital legacy album. Not just to declutter, but to celebrate what you're choosing to keep and why. Here's a question for you. What's the one space in your home that's quietly begging for a fresh start? Maybe it's a cluttered kitchen drawer or the top of your nightstand. Share it in the comments. Your first step might inspire someone else to take theirs. Because up next, we're going beyond the boxes and drawers. What happened after Inez made space was something she never expected, and it changed the way she lived and connected in her final chapter. When Inez finally cleared out her spare room, the one that had quietly transformed into a clutter cave of old luggage, wrapping paper, dusty magazines, and half-finished sewing projects, she didn't expect anything big. She just wanted to breathe in that space again. Maybe have a place to fold laundry or sip coffee without tripping over boxes. But once the clutter was gone, something remarkable happened. The empty room didn't feel hollow. It felt hopeful, like it was waiting for something new. That's when the idea came. What if she brought her piano out of retirement? Not just for herself, but for others. So she dusted off her old upright piano, set it against the far wall, and placed her tablet on a music stand. Her granddaughter helped her download Zoom and set up a little ring light. Within a few weeks, Inez, 74, retired jazz pianist from St. Louis, was teaching virtual piano lessons to kids from coast to coast. Each note, each shared laugh, became a bridge between generations. The clutter that once filled that room had taken up space, not just physically, but mentally. Once it was gone, joy had room to move back in. This is the part of the story many people never expect. Decluttering isn't just about letting go, it's about inviting in. And across the US, more and more seniors are doing just that. It's a quiet revolution happening in spare bedrooms, basements, and forgotten nooks. Once overflowing guest rooms are becoming wellness corners with yoga mats, plants, and natural light. Hobby havens for painting, sewing, or genealogy research. Tech hubs where FaceTime calls with grandkids and online classes now happen. Seniors aren't just downsizing their stuff, they're upgrading their lives. And there's science behind this shift. Studies show that older adults who repurpose space for creative or social activities experience boosts in mood, memory, and even mobility. It's not just about having more room. It's about having more reason to move forward. For Inez, every piano lesson became a reminder that she still had something to give, that her experience was valuable. That joy didn't belong to the past. It could be created, even reinvented, in a tiny room with good lighting and an internet connection. She started calling that room her stage. Not because she was performing for applause, but because it gave her a place to show up fully, to teach, to laugh, to share. And all of it, all the newness, only became possible because she made room for it. So ask yourself this today. If you cleared just one extra room in your home, what would you turn it into? Would it be a place to write your memoirs? A cozy reading nook? A studio to teach your skills? A mini museum of your life's adventures? Tell us in the comments. Your idea might just light a spark in someone else. Because sometimes, the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin after we've made the space for them. And as Inez would say, you're never too old to make room for something new. Inez Weatherby didn't want to be remembered by the clutter she left behind. She wanted to be remembered by the life she lived. And not just remembered, felt, heard, seen, passed on. As she approached her 75th birthday, she realized something profound. The most meaningful legacy isn't stored in cardboard boxes or attics. It lives in stories, laughter, lessons, and the quiet beauty of everyday objects infused with memory. So she got intentional, and with just a little effort and a lot of heart, Inez began turning objects into legacy. First, she tackled the overflowing boxes of photographs, some black and white, others faded from sun and time. But instead of keeping them in piles, she turned them into a digital storybook. With help from a local librarian, she scanned each photo, grouped them by decade, and recorded short audio clips for a select few. Her voice would gently narrate. This one, that's the day we bought the Buick. Your grandfather insisted on getting white wall tires. He said it made the car smile. Those images, once silent, now spoke, her voice telling her story in her own words. It wasn't just preserving photos. It was preserving presence. Then, she discovered a gem. Her local library had a program that helped seniors record oral memoirs, structured interviews where she shared stories from childhood, motherhood, music, love, grief, and all the little chapters in between. The final result was a professionally edited recording, a living time capsule her family could cherish forever. Some seniors even use apps like StoryCorps or Memoir to do this from home. And perhaps the most tender part of her legacy work was this. She began passing down items with purpose, not pressure. No more just take it, hand-me-downs, or guilt-laden heirlooms. Instead, Inez wrote small notes for each item she passed along. A teacup that said, "For your first apartment, may it bring you warmth." A scarf with, "This hugged me during hard times. Now it's your turn." She didn't force anything on her family. She offered it, with meaning attached. And what wasn't taken she released with grace, knowing the love inside it had already done its job. In the end, Inez's home was no museum of forgotten things. It was a curated collection of what mattered most. When she passed, her family didn't sort through messes with confusion. They walked through rooms that felt like hugs. Every drawer held intention. Every object told a story. As her granddaughter put it, Grandma didn't leave behind clutter. She left a living storybook. Her home didn't echo with silence. It sang with memory. And that's the kind of legacy we all deserve. One where our loved ones don't just inherit things, they inherit us. So here's your final reflection today. What object in your home could become a story instead of a burden? Could a faded photograph become a narrated treasure? Could a letter become a legacy? Could you record just one memory today that your family would one day treasure? Tell us in the comments. Your voice matters more than you know. Decluttering isn't about erasing your past. It's about honoring it. It's not about tossing memories or stripping away the comfort of familiarity. It's about shining a light on what truly matters and letting the rest quietly fall away. Because the truth is, every item you choose to keep with care and every space you reclaim with intention becomes a brushstroke in the legacy you leave behind. You're not just organizing drawers. You're composing the final chapters of your life story, one filled with meaning, grace, and quiet power. Maybe today, you saw yourself in Inez. Maybe you've got a spare room that could become something beautiful, or a box of letters that deserves a voice, or perhaps just a single drawer you're now ready to open with new eyes. Whatever it is, start there. Let this be your moment, because decluttering isn't the end of anything. It's the beginning of something new. It's a chance to decide what kind of echo you want to leave behind. Not a pile of forgotten things, but a trail of memories that warm the hearts of those who follow. And if even one idea in today's video made you pause, smile, or reflect, do something powerful. Hit that like button, not for the algorithm, but because it tells us this message mattered. Share this with someone you care about, a friend, a sibling, a parent, someone who deserves to feel peace, not pressure, in their space. And most importantly, subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors, because we're just getting started, and your next chapter might just be your most joyful, purposeful one yet. Remember, you're not too late. You're not too far behind. You're right on time to make room for what truly matters.